Alright, people, alright. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم. أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا. One lights, bienvenidos a todos, people. Bakhair Ragle Khushamadid. Bienvenidos once again, and as always, swagatam. All right, Khani, you're doing it. Let me just check, do a quick audio check. Let's bring up mi gente. Yo, look at that. People, truth is Discord nowadays. I don't know what people are on about. Frank saying, I like the haircut. Oh, shukran. Shahriyar Qazi, love you, Mufti. Right back at you, man. Right back at you. Te quiero también. Alright, don't throw the hand sign. Don't throw it, man. Too late, man. I just did that, man. So, first and foremost, let me just check. Sound check. Everything, is the volume coming through? Cool, I can see my equalizers seem to be all fine. Alright, so, your intro sounds so familiar, it brings me joy. Alright, people, you're doing it. Let me just bring forward my drink. Look at that. Allah. Like the box beard. Shukran. People, you are doing it. Clear. Ahlan wa sahlan. Henna ji. Ahlan wa sahlan as always. And Frowdy Frubbery. You guys are doing it. Right. Flat. Aj Zeba Khaja Flat Mufti. What? Love your talk with Andani. Yeah, that was an amazing. I really enjoyed that discussion. So people, whilst others are waiting to tune in, you can click like, click share whilst we're waiting on other people. As always, why not begin with some sha'iri, people, some ash'ar.
हर एक हजार में बस 5-7 हैं हम लोग.
हाय
वाह क्या मिसरा है.
हर एक हजार में बस 5-7 हैं हम लोग.
5-7 हैं.
निसाबे इश्क पे वाजिब ज़कात हैं हम लोग.
हाय.
दबाव में भी जमात कभी नहीं बदली. कभी नहीं बदली. शुरू दिन से मोहब्बत के साथ हैं हम लोग. किसी को रास्ता दे दें, किसी को पानी ना दें.
बहुत अच्छे.
किसी को रास्ता दे दें, किसी को पानी ना दें. कहीं पे नील, कहीं पर फुरात हैं हम लोग.
हाय.
और ये इंतजार हमें देखकर बनाया गया. ये इंतजार हमें देखकर बनाया गया. ज़हूर हिज्र से पहले की बात है.
वाह. So, mi gente, ¿cómo están? What's going down, people? What is preoccupying the precious minds of mi gente? Ali Ditta. Huh? Ali Ditta. Is that really the name? Ali Ditta. That means Ali gave it. As in gave the child. Kis ditta? Ali ditta. Acha. So what is going down? People, there's mayhem everywhere. As you're all aware, we've had let me first and foremost begin by actually I'll come back to that. UK is going mad, people. Bloody hell. Restrictions once again. UK Parliament seems to have lost the plot. It's where have I got the Oh no, that's not the one. There was this clip though. I'll come back to this in a moment. But where's the? Yeah, here it is.
Straight for a minute, because I think it's important to take a step back. What
Look,
the Prime Minister is coming to this house to tell
Bojo
us
has completely
is
lost
his
the plot.
flagship achievement. The deal he told us was a triumph. The deal he said, as I said, that was oven ready. The deal on which he fought and won the general election is now contradictory and ambiguous. Madam Deputy Speaker, what incompetence.
Just
What
look
failure
at
of
Boris
government
Johnson.
Governance. And Madam Deputy Speaker, how dare he try and blame everyone else? Can I say to the Prime Minister, this time he can't blame the Right Honourable Member for Maidenhead, he can't blame John Major, he can't blame the judges, he can't blame the civil servants, he can't sack the Cabinet Secretary again. There's only one person responsible for it, and that's him. This is his deal. It's his mess. It's his failure. For the first time in his life, it's time to take responsibility. It's time to fess up. Either he wasn't straight with the country about the deal in the first place, or he didn't understand it.
God, all of this is going on. The whole deal, the Irish backstop, the whole... Amidst a lockdown again, so that's the Brexit mess, the lockdown, the government all of a sudden realizes, well, actually, it's the young people's fault for going out. and they come up with a genius idea that it's the spectacular six that can only meet up together. And anybody above 6, groups of more than 6 are illegal, but 6 are okay. Even though work is fine, schools are fine, uni is fine. It's following a month of the government saying to everyone, hey, get up out of your homes, help out, eat out, go eat out. We're going to pay on your behalf for you to eat. Take the whole family out. There were ridiculous queues. I was hating it because if you're trying to ever go to a restaurant, you can't go because some people are acting like they've never seen food before. There were queues. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people queued up at these major restaurants. And then a month later, the government's like, you know what? It's your fault. So this is the state of the UK, people. So it's all just mayhem. Amidst that, what else was I looking at? I was looking up some... you know what's been interesting is these wildfires. I mean, not interesting, it's a tragedy, but these wildfires in America, I haven't seen much coverage of them. I mean, I just about came to know that, okay, there's these wildfires going on in America. And something about a gender reveal party kind of created the worst one. And the news don't seem to be really covering it as far as I'm aware. I don't know. Maybe for other people it is. But yeah, that's crazy considering a few months ago when there was the BLM kind of things and there were certain areas that they were saying, oh, people are rioting in. Every news channel was covering it. And now you've got some cataclysmic wildfires taking place in America, and it's so kind of like, well, you know, it happens. So, what's going on, people? What's going on? Yes, speaking of mayhem, governments, for the Masala segment, we'll be looking slightly at our beloved Sheikh Asrarji and his resilient stance against the government. We'll take a little look at that a little later on, me beloveds. So, up until then, what is going down, people? Apart from, we may have discovered life on Venus. That sounds interesting. It does indeed. They've basically discovered Right, I'll just come to the super chat in just a moment. They've discovered some chemical. They've discovered certain chemicals, I believe, is it phosphine, or they've discovered something which I was reading up about it briefly earlier on today in Venus. They've detected it, and usually it's only emitted under strenuous circumstances on Earth when certain creatures like penguins or other kind of creatures are struggling with oxygen, and this is then emitted. So it's found as a reaction, usually from life form. So, maybe people, maybe. On that note, just slightly digressing, I was reading the other day an interview of Terence McKenna, the Al-Ustad people, Al-Ustad Terence McKenna, an Ustad of enlightenment in his own way. And it's interesting how he was highlighting that, you see, we seem to have in the recent decades developed an obsession with aliens, to the extent that will we personify those aliens and ourselves embark to become the very myth which we are chasing? It's an interesting thought anyway. So let's come back to your questions. Right, Apostate Prophet did a video replying or refuting you. What do you think about it? I didn't watch all of it, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie. You know what it is? झूठ की आदत ही नहीं है मुझे. In the words of Ghalib, he says, सादिक हूं अपने कौल में, गालिब खुदा गवाह. सच कहता हूं कि झूठ की आदत नहीं मुझे. Allah, Allah, Allah. He says, Ghalib, he says, I'm truthful in what I say, and the Lord is a witness above. That what I speak is the truth. I'm not accustomed to telling lies. La, la, la. That reminds me, I had un momento. Where is it?
And let's just
check this out. Wow, I saw this clip. I was like, wow, kya style hai yaar, kya. Waqia. The Badshah of Bollywood. So, people, right now, anyway, Apus, the thing is, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I have kind of lost, I don't know, any little respect I had for Apus. I lost it when he, just to kind of increase his sub-story and his sympathizers, repeatedly rips the Qur'an on every opportunity he gets and just chucks it away. People like that, to me, I don't have much respect for them. Because to me, they're just people, just trying to pull a stunt, win some sympathy, their sub-stories on repeat. So I don't really want to be engaging him. I don't really want to. He's not very intelligent anyway, to start off with. So, if he wants to do that kind of, Muhammad Hijab has been calling him, whoever, the other, what's his name, Danny Boy had ripped him. I mean, all of them have kind of torn him to pieces. He's happy to engage those people. Me, I don't really have respect for him. So I'm not going to dignify him by giving him any time of day. So to me, people can criticize, they can satirize, they can do whatever they have to do. But if they're going to take it to the extent that they will attack symbols publicly just to, as a stunt, and repeatedly, not even once, repeatedly, every opportunity they get, just to, so people can hate on them. What they want is Muslims to react barbarically so they can get the sympathy of certain people. Oh, we're persecuted. I think grow up. So Apus can stay in his wherever he is. Moving on to the next question. Sakina Jabin says, Salam Mufti, dude, we work, you know. Well, Sakina Ji, you see, this is, me, I work too. I'm a movie critic by profession. See, this is the kind of work that you want to get into. Working in the end of times. Mufti is early for the first check. Am I live? Am I live? No, no. Let me check what has happened here. This is really odd. Let me close this chat. Nope, doesn't seem to be live. Unable to connect to chat. That's weird. Is it not live? No, no, no. That's really weird. Alright, are we back or what? Let me check. Guys, are we back? Or no? Damn, let me just write this. Is we back? Alright, let's see. I think so. I do not know what happened there. Back, yes, god damn. Oh my god, people. That is, I have to say that, look, somebody asks about the jinn, and as soon as they ask about the jinn, I need fiber optic. I think I do. I'm sure, is this not fiber optic? I'm sure this is the best that BT can offer me right now, I'm afraid. And this is it, the best that BT have in Birmingham, which is the second city within the UK. So, I don't know. Guys, I do not know what happened, but it disconnected, and that was really weird. It's never disconnected like that. So, samihuni people, samihuni, afwan, disculpame. Right, so what is going on? Yeah, speaking about the jinn, somebody had asked me that, look, I'm obviously in contact with the jinn, but then why are the jinn working against me? Well, all blurry. No, don't say that. Don't say that. Mufti, is the Hajj a pagan? Yeah. Is right. It is fine. Cool. Shukran. Right, people, let's get back to it, man. So, Sam El Imam. Right. Shukran for the super chat. You're doing it. Khadim Rizvi has also said that maybe BT stands for Bahinch. Maybe it does. So Sam El Imam asks, should we go back to using lunisolar calendars? No, we should not really. Why should we? I mean, why should we go back now? The whole world has kind of adapted to this. To go back now would be, it just wouldn't really make any sense. Right, so yeah. So, right, people, what is going on? What is the ruling of marrying Christians? Jawad Abid. Henna Tariq, don't change anything. High quality video on Facebook. Well, shukran. Right. What is going on? Do we think the Hajj is a pagan ritual? No, it's not a pagan ritual, but I have got a detailed lecture called, it's on the Black Stone and Safa wal Marwa. And it is true that there are several aspects to the Hajj that have their roots in pre-Islamic Arabia. And it's what it is that including Safa wal Marwa in my understanding. So Safa wal Marwa is from a pre-Islamic. It's not based on anything. It is based on pagan practices, but what it is that as Islam had come, it neutralized the myth, and what remained was the ritual. So what Islam did is it just kind of absorbed the ritual, and hence the verse of the Qur'an that inna safa wal marwata min sha'airillah faman tatawwa'a bihima fa inna allaha shakirun alim. So that's why it is therefore fine, and many rituals in Islam are like that. I would assume that there's many aspects to, and in fact, what the Prophet did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was combine between the kind of the aspect of what the Meccans had. You see, in Arabia, when they did the Hajj, they didn't actually used to go to Mecca. They would go to Arafah. And what the Prophet did is he combined between that and between the rest of the people by uniting the Hajj, making it where you have the tawaf and you have that of Mecca, because that was something only the Quraysh did. The rest of the Arabs did not used to go to Mecca to do tawaf. Generally speaking, maybe the occasional, not during Hajj anyway, they would just go to Arafah. So the Prophet combined that. So it is clearly an Islamic practice. Whether there's some roots of it in pre-Islamic Arabia, there obviously are, but the point is that it had lost that message. Okay, and it got absorbed into Islamic practice. Right. Speaking, somebody has asked about Allamas. Allamas. Those of you that are aware, the meme I often share, that you guys are well familiar with. Launches, bro. No, not that one. This that is Allama. You've got. I'm forgetting his full name now. I know it's Allama Zameer Naqvi Sahib. He has passed away just this week gone. He passed away from a heart attack. I have to say, may Allah, first of all, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, may Allah, grant him a blessed afterlife, and each and all who pass away. And he did have some very entertaining content, I have to say. I did enjoy his... I used to find it hilarious. I don't know whether he had that intention when he would make it to make people laugh, but he did used to make a lot of people laugh. I saw some comments that people were saying that, you know, he was a Shia, and what the hell? Why are people saying, making dua for him, or saying, may Allah like rest in peace, or may Allah give him Jannah? Why are people saying this? He hated Umar radiallahu an and stuff like this. I mean, firstly, I want to say this ties into another topic I want to briefly discuss as well tonight, and that is some of the sectarianism that's happening globally, to do with especially some of the cases in Pakistan. Because why Pakistan is because a lot of what happens there echoes and kind of trickles into the rest of the world, especially the Western world, because a lot of Islam in the West today is heavily influenced by two places, especially in Europe and the UK, and to a great extent in America as well. Islam is influenced massively by just two anchor points. One is Saudi Arabia, and the other is Pakistan. And by Pakistan, you could extend it to the Indian subcontinent. But really, what happens in these places, unfortunately, it has this effect in places like the UK, in places like America, in places like Europe, in other parts of the world, just because of the amount that is being pumped out from there about Islam. So, first of all, about Allama Zameer Sahib. Look, I didn't really watch his lectures. That I watched a few that were more entertaining. They were more humorous. Whether he was trying to be funny or not, but he made me laugh. He made a lot of people laugh. Those are the clips I only watched. I don't know in his personal life or in his other lectures whether what he said about companions or not. I don't know. Look, all I do know is that he was a Muslim. Okay. He was somebody who, he made a lot of people, he entertained a lot of people, and he provided guidance in his own way to people. Is it not enough that he was somebody that did say the Shahada and he died a Muslim? Even if he was a Shia, so what? I mean, Shia are still Muslim. They're not kafir at the end of the day. It's not like... And look, I personally, to me, people like Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhum, Muawiyah radiallahu anhum, these people to me are great people, obviously with a variation between them. Sayyidina Umar is a great personality to me. But that I've discussed this previously, that look, do I believe in the right of somebody to be a Shia to the extent that they hold a very critical position on Umar? Do I support that belief, but do I support their right to the freedom to choose that? And the answer is, of course I do. I disagree passionately with that opinion. If somebody was to say that they've, like a lot of the general Shia claims sometimes against Umar, I disagree with them, but I believe in their freedoms to hold them. You see, this is not a dictatorship, people. We can't kind of force beliefs onto people. I would rather reason things out with people. And, if they want to believe in this, if they want to believe in that, it's up to them at the end of the day. But to me, people are still Muslim. If you say that, if a person says the Shahada, if a person says he believes in Allah, he believes in his messenger, they are Muslims. Now, they may have weird beliefs. They may have wacko beliefs. They may have a very problematic version of Islam. But to me, that's between Allah and them to judge them. it may really disturb me, some of the things, the views they hold, but at the end of the day, it is a free world. People have to choose their own faith. They can't, we can't dictate to them. This is not a totalitarian faith. So that's my perspective, and I do, for him, from the things I watched of his, he was entertaining. He made people smile, and I, for that, do make dua for him, and that may Allah grant him a blessed afterlife. With that in mind, there has been a huge kind of kickoff in Pakistan in the last few weeks. Those of you that are familiar with the case to do with Asif Alwi. Now, this is a Shia cleric. So the Shia clerics are called Zakirs. In Pakistan, they call them Zakirs as preachers. So what it is that during the Muharram gathering, he got really, had a few way too many Red Bulls, got a bit too excited, and started to insult the companions, and then took it to the extent that openly preached, saying that Abu Bakr radiallahu an was not only a fajir, that means a great transgressor, but he was a kafir in Islam. Now, this person, Asif Alwi, his name is, since then, there's been a huge campaign in Pakistan that this is blasphemy, he needs to be arrested. A bunch of people have been arrested. He himself, from what I heard, is actually arrived in the UK. He quickly caught got a quick flight out of Pakistan and got to the UK. But in Pakistan, it caused a huge stir. One of the silver lining to this cloud was that it did get it established a channel of communication between Sunni and Shia scholars. So, because many of the Shia imams also came forward and condemned his actions. And this should be a great lesson to people that who sometimes spread hate, that people are not a monolith. Sunnis are not all one and Shia are not all one. Many great Shia preachers in Pakistan came forward and condemned this kind of action and said, we do not say things like this. We condemn him. And this established a channel of communication between people. So on that was like a silver lining to that. But yeah, it's just madness. Honestly, it's madness. Let's come back to taking some questions. Right, so what are people saying? Oh, there was a super chat. Did I just miss that? Let me just get to the super chat. Right, Handsome Hound, you're doing it. Amidst all this on global sectarianism, mayhem, violence, and the world going to bits, everything, there's COVID and lockdowns and Brexit falling to pieces and blasphemy laws being called for and the death penalty, and Handsome Hound, amidst all of this discussion, has his question, which is incredibly pestering, playing on his mind, preoccupying, it's precluding his thoughts, that if we had ejaculation if we had ejaculation, yeah, Handsome Hound, if we had more ejaculation, there would probably be less of this kind of well, you see, there is a guy with his head screwed on. No pun intended. He's focused. He's like, listen, global pandemics can wait. global sectarianism can wait. The blasphemy and death penalty can wait. If we had ejaculation, should we urinate before taking the ghusl? I gotta read this whole question. Should we urinate before taking ghusl? Otherwise, ghusl would be invalid because semen might be left in the passage. Whose passage? What are we talking about? Right, let's focus, people. Let's focus. What's this OCD? I don't get it. What's this OCD? Right, so should we... Let's answer his question and put him at ease. Should we urinate before? I would say, look, if you gotta go, if nature calls, nature calls. You know, if nature's calling, you should go. That's the... That's if nature's calling, you should go. You don't need to stress yourself out that, look, shall I hold on to it till I've done my ghusl? Good to see that the ummah remains focused. ولكنما أسعى what is it? ولكنما أسعى لمجد مؤثل وقد يدرك المجد المؤثل أمثال. Hi. Imra al-Qais, people. Imra al-Qais. What does he say? He says, لو أنما أسعى لأدنى معيشة, that if I was striving for just something like just getting by, كفاني ولم أطلب قليل من المال. He says, I could, if that's what I wanted, I could have just got by with a small amount of wealth and this and that, and if that's what I wanted. لكنما أسعى لمجد مؤثل. But me, I'm seeking out a legacy. Allah, a legacy of great glory. وقد يدرك المجد المؤثل أمثال. And it is very possible. It is quite possible that people like me attain a glorious legacy. In the words of Mir Taqi Mir Sahib, where he says, कहाँ पैदा हैं पारंगंदा तबा लोग, that these unique geniuses, where are they born? Are people like that still born? अफसोस तुमको मीर से सोहबत नहीं. Allah. That it's a shame that you no longer have the company of the likes of Mir. So that's what it is, people. وَقَدْ يُدْرِكُ الْمَجْدَ الْمُؤَثَّلَ أَمْثَالِ. You know, on this poem, let me tell you a little. Isse yaad aaya. This reminds me. The grammarians, they declared World War III. You know, the amount of ikhtilaf you have in fiqh, people, you have probably as much, if not more, in the world of grammar. The problem is, and you know, at one time I used to be so, oh my God, I used to love the ikhtilafat, the kind of debates that grammarians used to have in Arabic. I used to be like so, I used to be memorizing, oh my God, this, he said this. But then what happened was I eventually lost, I had no company to share that with. So I couldn't just be a madman just talking to myself. So eventually I had to kind of depart ways with that amazing legacy. But let me tell you, on this poem, those of you that the Arabic, Arabic nerds out there, let me share some gems with you on this poem. You see, those of you that know this poem that I just read, it belongs to Imra al-Qais, the great Jahili poet, who's known as the Casanova of Jahiliyyah, the great Casanova of Jahiliyyah. So now in this poem, he begins by saying that if I was seeking wealth, then he says, وَلَوْ أَنَّمَا أَسْعَى لِأَدْنَى مَعِيشَةٍ كَفَانِي وَلَمْ أَطْلُبْ قَلِيلٌ مِّنَ الْمَالِ. Now here, those of you that are into Arabic will notice, he says, kafani, it would suffice me. Walam atlub qalilun. He does not say qalilan minal. He does not make it mansub. Qalilan minal mali. He says qalilun minal mali. तो फिर यहाँ पे फड्डा हो गया है. The grammarians took the gloves off. They go, yaar, yahan pe ho kya raha hai? So this became an issue that you see, if two verbs, this is called in Arabic, tanaza'ul fi'lain. So if two verbs are both competing for the subject, which one does it go to? This is when people had way too much time on their hands. So the Kufiyin, the grammarians, the main schools in grammar are the Kufiyin and the Basriyin. And the Kufiyin, people like Abu Ja'far al-Ru'asi, people like Kasa'i, the famous Qari from the Qira'at, the 10 Qira'at, Kasa'i. These kind of people, the Kufiyin, they said that a verb should always really go to the first verb. Sorry, the subject. So if I said, if there were two verbs, like in this, if I was to say, in this example you've got, and they use this poem to prove their point, kafani walam atlub qalilum min al mali, that this subject is to do with the first verb, kafani. Now the Basriyin, amongst them the Don Sibawayh, he was of the opinion, they said that usually, they said that what happens is the latter verb, which is closer to it, should have it. So they went to town on this poem. And Sibawayh brings it in his book, Al-Kitab, and he has a different twist on it. He says that that's not what's happening in this poem. He says that the meaning is actually different. And he says that walam atlub is to do with the second line, because what I'm seeking is this great mujj, this great honor. But I just thought I'd share that with you guys, that you have this huge, these grammarians go to town. They really, they get passionate. It's like the Sunni Shia divide based on grammar. And it's amazing that the way they come up with certain things. Whilst I'm on it, I'll tell you, there's another quick one that comes to my mind. Just to show you sometimes how their diversity, it brings a new meaning as well. So you've got Kufiyin, some grammarians, like there's a grammarian known as Al-Akhfash. Al-Akhfash is a legend, people, a legend. Don. What Akhfash did is he learnt the Kitab of Sibawayh, he got it, and then he would only teach it after Sibawayh but charge for it. And Akhfash, he had this opinion that a person could always add a a min zaida when you're saying something. So I could say, like, for example, ja'ani rajul. I could say ja'ani min rajul. And other grammarians had huge issues with this. That what are you talking about? Why would you do that? And he says, well, when you look at the Quran, there's verses in the Quran like where Allah says, look, yaghfir lakum dhunubakum. Allah will forgive for you your mistakes, your sins. And in another verse, the same thing, yaghfir lakum min dhunubikum. So it's the same thing. And in some verses, yukaffir ankum sayyi'atikum. And you've got so many examples of this. So the other grammarians, they said, no, this here is litab'id. So when a preposition like min, from, or of comes, in this example, an, it means some of the sins. Maybe not all. Yukaffir ankum, yaghfir lakum min dhunubikum, from your sins, meaning not all of them. But what I wanted to point out here is what's interesting is al-mubarrid. He comes along. On another session someday, I'll tell you about all these politics that go on between these people. But al-mubarrid, Abu Abbas al-Mubarrid, he comes along and he says that actually there's a unique understanding by adding min. He says that when you add min in a sentence like this, you refer to the entire genus. So if I was to say, ma ja'ani rajulun, a man didn't come to me, I could potentially respond by saying, a man didn't come to me, men came to me. You understand? Or like I could almost affirm it with the plural or with more or something like this. I could say, oh, I didn't get a book, I got books. You understand? But he says, so if I said ma ja'ani min rajulin, qad nafaytul jinsa kulla, what I've done is I've completely wiped out the whole genus. Like I've said, not a single man from the whole of the species has come. Anyway, that's some interesting food for thought. And these are interesting, fascinating characters. Those of you that are into Arabic, I've digressed, do read up on this kind of stuff. You'll find it very fascinating. These guys, their refutations, Mubarrid, he's like somebody who comes and tries to refute Sibawayh, and it's just hilarious, the whole thing, the whole back and forth. And even though he's kind of Basri himself, I suppose he's Baghdadi, but he's more Basri inclined. But anyway, people, let's move on. Let's get back to what's going on. So, please shed some... what the hell is this? Whoa, people... Right, people, please refrain from any kind of swears and things like that. Right, do not behave in the chat, please. I just seen some people swearing and insulting some of the mods. So behave, Varna. Right, so Laura Ram says Ram. Radhe Radhe. Right, so what is going on? Yeah, so people have said the Shia genocide. I did speak about, look, I've said that this stuff is nonsense. Pakistan needs to fix itself, man. I don't know how it can fix itself, though. I don't know, people. I'm just at a loss for words. There was a picture of this massive demonstration, and it said that this is to do with which I'll speak about in a moment, the rape case, the kind of tragic case that happened recently in Pakistan. And then it said, just messing, this is actually, astaghfirullah, it's not a laughing matter. It's actually a parade that's an anti-Shia parade, saying Shia kafir, kafir, Shia kafir. Astaghfirullah. A person doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. That's what it is. Yeah, so what is going on? Shall we speak about this this case? Right, let's see.
रात की धड़कन जब तक जारी रहती है.
ये क्या है यार? ये क्या है? Oh, here it is. I don't know where that. That's like, sometimes that's like your mind. It has so many different tabs open, and there's music coming from somewhere, and you got no idea where it's coming from. Right, people, now, unfortunately, to come to a more grim situation, those of you that are familiar, there's been an atrocious, tragic case, incident in Pakistan, reported in the press as the motorway incident. So what happened was, I believe it was a French national, a lady that's a French national. She was traveling by some motorway. She was going by some road. She had her children in the car. She ran out of fuel on this motorway at a bit of what I assume was a desolate kind of area. And some people noticed that. So some sexual predators, they saw that this lady is alone in the car. Sorry, she's with her children, vulnerable in the car. So they smashed the car windows, got them all out of the car, and they took them to, it was, I believe it was close to some desolate kind of, like a remote area. So it was quite quiet and people don't really pass there. And they took her down there, and some reports I've read that they took her children as well, and then they raped her. So, and the report said they raped her in front of the children. I mean, may Allah, first of all, may Allah make things easy for her. May Allah make things easy for her family. Our thoughts and du'as, first and foremost, are with her family. And may, Allah take these people, these culprits, to task. It is unbelievable the kind of horrific tragedies and that happen in those parts of the world. And since then, it's triggered, quite rightly so, an outrage in Pakistan. And what you've had is people have taken to the streets, especially women. They've started protesting. You had an official from, I believe he was from Lahore. He, being a total nutcase, he responded to the matter by kind of blaming the victim. I mean, you couldn't, it's not a laughing matter, but you'd laugh out of like insanity that would he really say that? He responded to the press by saying, well, she should have planned her journey more carefully, and she should not have taken such a route. She should have taken a more mainstream route, a particular highway or whatever it was. And two, she should have had enough fuel in her car if she was going on such a journey. Now, so this, as you can imagine, is just adding insult to injury. This is the kind of state of mind of certain officials. So naturally, this just, we further heightened the outrage against the authorities, against the establishment. People took to Imran Khan saying that they should hang the rapist. And they said, we demand a public execution of the culprits. So, yeah, I mean, so on this thought, on this kind of concept, a few people had kind of sent me I was aware of, I'd seen the incident in the media on certain social media accounts. And some people had asked my thoughts. And I thought, okay, let's share my thoughts on it. You see, I do not support capital punishment. Now, I want to say something here because I've discussed this previously about capital punishment, and people do have sometimes, said things, and they've asked questions, and I wanted to expand on it. You see, it's not that I don't believe that certain crimes don't warrant capital punishment, like they don't warrant death. I do feel, as a person, that there are several crimes that warrant, like they create a kind of homicidal rage within, especially the victims or the people related to the victim, and even just the public at large. These include things like terrorism. They include pedophilia. They include things like violent rape. They include things like, and there's many, murder, clearly. They include, where people have just been sadistically torturing individuals. Like, let's say now, this particular incident of this Lahore motorway incident that I cited just a few minutes ago, it was preceded by, I think a week earlier, by an incident where somebody had a monster had raped and killed a 5-year-old girl. I mean, you can't, like, that sentence doesn't even, you can't even hold, like, you struggle to compute what's being said. That a person, he kidnapped, abducted, raped, and burnt a 5-year-old child. I unquestionably would feel that these people deserve death. That even death, to be honest with you, I as a person feel that is, this is my emotions, and this is I feel that even that is too easy. Somebody that could even, think, let alone do such a heinous, a horrendous, monstrous kind of crime. Even death is such an easy way out, really, for them. Right, now, that is on one hand. I agree with people that there are many crimes, many, that deserve death. Okay. However, there is a question here. The question is, do I believe that the state has such power that it can put people to death? This is a different discussion. You see, I struggle with accepting that any government has the power to end the life, like to tell an individual that they are to die. That, you see, in and of itself, to me, is not, like, it cannot be allowed, because it is in essence a government having the ability to conduct human sacrifices. Because in essence, that is what they are doing. They hold the power to sacrifice a human life in light of whatever the principles or the rituals or the laws or religion or whatever it is. Human sacrifices are not something that I can endorse in any. I cannot endorse that as at a statutory level, because if we do endorse that, that is just way too much power, and there will be it is unquestionable that there will be cases that are mistakenly indicted. It is unquestionable. There have been studies in countries like America that have a rigorous legal system, and there have been studies of there was a particular study of, I think, 150 something cases they were going back, spanning several decades, all that were proven later on posthumously. They were proven post hoc to have been innocent. The irrevocability of those cases, to me, is something that just cannot justify the state having the ability to sacrifice human beings, even if it is to appease the crowds, or if it is because tomorrow, if what they want to sacrifice people over changes, you see, you may say, well, why would it? But it could. I mean, has it not historically? And you see, this is the thing. So I feel that that is the problem. I cannot, personally, I cannot condone, as an individual, the state having the power to sacrifice a human being. To me, that is too much power for a state to ever have. So, and I feel that there are, and I know people have spoken on this, that a state can ironically tell an individual to take life in defense, like it does in military campaigns, but it should never have the right to tell an individual that you must die, like you must give up your life. Like that power a state in the modern world should never have. And I do feel that it's right that does land us in a terrible dilemma of what to do. Now, there is an interview of Imran Khan that I'll bring to your attention here.
मैं उसके बाद समझता हूँ इसकी कैस्ट्रेशन होनी चाहिए, केमिकल कैस्ट्रेशन. अब ये कई मुल्कों के अंदर मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ, तो उनको या सर्जरी करें कि वो आगे से कुछ कर ही ना सके.
जो रिपीट ऑफेंडर है,
जो देखे ना, जिस तरह मर्डर होता है फर्स्ट डिग्री, सेकंड डिग्री, थर्ड डिग्री, उसी तरह इसको भी ग्रेड करें. और जो फर्स्ट डिग्री हो उसको तो कैस्ट्रेशन करें, यानी उनको कभी भी, यानी उनको आप ऑपरेशन करके उनको नकारा करके रख दें. उससे इस तरह के लोगों को इनको ऑपरेशन करना चाहिए.
See, those of you that couldn't understand Urdu, Imran Khan, following on from this incident, said that he's looking into having castration. Now, that's something I would say, because I would say definitely. I mean, there's no definitely about it. Although there are a lot of questions still unanswered and not responded to. They are, for example, several objections, criticisms, and they are, for example, things like countries like Pakistan, for example, are way too corrupt. And if you're just to say, well, we've given, had surgery done, it would be easy for somebody to just bribe to get a report to say, yes, it's done. But I do support. I think even that, I won't lie, it is a disturbing kind of punishment. But I do feel that, people, monsters, like that incident I said of that, who abducted a 5-year-old child and raped her and burnt her. To be honest, as an individual, I would want to, as an individual, I would want to give him such a torturing, slow, with a timelessness sense of death. As an individual, that's what I would want to do. I would want to torture the hell out of that individual. But you see, that's as an individual I'm responding. But as a state, you see, the problem is states you cannot hand over these kind of authorities to a state, because I just can't agree with that, because that's another problem in and of itself. But castration, definitely, I would be, I could agree with stuff like castration, things like that. Yeah, definitely. But there are other problems that, people that, there's been several studies on people that are, for example, pedophiles and stuff like this. They're not necessarily, often it's not about the sex. So it doesn't, there's something wrong with those people. It's not about, you take the case of that French national that got raped on the motorway. There, I assume it is about the sex and it's about the power. But where you find cases of pedophilia and things like this, in many cases, it's not about the actual act with these people. It's something that is mentally deranged with them. So in many of these cases, these people sometimes may not even commit penetrative sex. They may just harm the people, even using objects or using you see, it's about that power state of mind with them, because it's not about the actual act. And you see, so that by castrating them, you wouldn't really deal with that issue. I don't know, man. I just feel that we in a very weird day and age. I don't know whether this was always an issue and now it's just being picked up more, or were these issues, are they a modern phenomenon? More increasingly a modern phenomenon? I don't know. Oh, may Allah make things easy. May Allah make things easy. I mean, I just feel that, sometimes you see all this and you've got to kind of stop as well, because, you read too much into this kind of stuff and you see it too much, and it just brings a kind of melancholy with it. So you've got to kind of detach as well, and you've got to kind of switch off unfortunately, these kind of news as well. So yeah, Kapil, you asking, would I feel that about castration? Yeah, I would feel that would be more suitable. Although I don't know whether that would even be an actual, would it deliver the actual result? Yeah. So, okay, people. Right, so, with that in mind, I've seen quite a few things on social media about this Netflix movie called Cuties. Now, I have to say, when I haven't watched it, and what I saw of it was, the kind of the trailer, for example. I found it very disturbing, appalling. It was about the sexualization of preteens, these girls who are 11 years old or something like this. And I saw a few posts of celebrities, including Hamza Ali Abbasi and other people, some non-Muslims as well, saying they are cancelling their Netflix subscription because Netflix has put Cuties on its thing. So I went there because I hadn't seen at that point the trailer properly. I'd seen just some snippets, and I thought, well, what is it that people are saying? So I went to Netflix, saw it there. Now, what they have there is an interview. I think it's a 5-minute or a 7-minute interview of the director, this lady, who is Senegalese lady, who's a director, and she's explaining why she's made this movie. And I watched that, and I have to say, I kind of walked away from having watched that, just even more kind of shell-shocked. But I have to say, it did dampen the kind of outrage. She explains that, look, you see, you walk away from there realizing, okay, there is a big problem. But I suppose, like many people, I just don't want to think about the problem. Like, what she was saying is that, you see, there is a huge issue with young girls, a challenge is a better word, who are pre-teens, and they are going through this kind of existential crisis, she says, and they have this unprecedented access to social media, and the glamorization, the kind of glamorization, the glorification of the female body, and how it brings attention. So the fact that women or girls will dress in a particular way and they will just get so many likes, thousands and thousands of likes. So these young girls, very young girls, watching this are then becoming more conscientious of this kind of appeal at an age that normally girls that age would not, maybe generally speaking, would not be as conscientious of. So her point in the interview, this is on Netflix, her interview. I think the interview is worth watching. I'm still very unsettled about the actual production, but the interview did give rise to many questions, which really kind of they kind of scared me as well, as an individual, as a father who got young daughters. I did think that, damn, it's something you'd rather not think about. And that was her point. Her point was that society is refusing to think about it. But this is a problem. And she's saying that I'm trying to highlight the problem and the struggle that these children are going through. And I do, hearing her words, it's not that I agree with the production. I don't, because it's very unsettling. But I agree that it's a problem, and it's a problem that even myself, I think, bloody hell, I don't want to think about it. And it's scary like that, because these young people are way too young, but society has radically sexualized everything. So yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, there are no imminent solutions that people have. Yeah, I mean, whether this thing is cancelled or not, I think the greater problem is there. And I did find ironic, this is, I'm going to say this, I have to say this, that there were some Muslims who were having this outrage about this. And the outrage may be rightly so, but then I was thinking, some of these people are the same people who keep promoting that the Prophet married a 9-year-old. And I found that to be so much of a, like a cognitive dissonance. That how does that work? Because when you say things like that, and me and so many other people, normal people, are outraged at that, and you say, well, what's the outrage? Then you here want the world as well to be outraged, and fair enough, I agree with this sentiment. But I'm thinking this is like a huge contradiction, because you're like saying, oh my God, they, saying that these 11-year-old girls, and then you're promoting, on the other hand, yes, when a girl is 9, she's somehow a woman in many cultures. And you think, well, no, that's definitely not the case. But yeah, let's move back, people, to some of your questions. Right, so one person called Ghamidi is doing all of that. I don't know what that is about, so... Right, what are your questions, people? What is going on? Let's take some of your questions. I haven't been taking... Somebody, Asia said, Cuties do represent reality. We can't ignore it. The gaps do exist, especially in Desi families. Asia Mahbub, I totally agree. This is why I would say, as much as I wouldn't dare watch, I just can't watch something, and I find it very disturbing, the movie, but I would say watch the director's interview, which is on Netflix. It's in the trailer section. The Senegalese lady, she's giving an interview. It's only, I think, 5 minutes. But it's very, it's quite disturbing in a reality way, like, because it brings reality home. And what's scary is we don't have the answers, because I'm just, I'm dreading this, because I have a daughter who's 9, and I'm thinking, well, in a couple of years, and I, in a way, would just not want to think. It's like that, out of sight, out of mind. That's not a solution, people. But it's just scary, and it's scary just generally. I think being a parent in this day and age is scary, man. I don't know if our parents had it that bad. I don't think they would have had it that bad. I don't know. Maybe they felt it was as bad. I don't know. Does every generation feel it's as bad? It can't be. I think technology has definitely changed the game. Right, so... right, what's going on, people? Mufti, most men cannot imagine their 9-year-old daughters... That's disgusting. Behave. That is literally disgusting. Surely the movie shouldn't get cancelled if it's raising awareness. Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I watched the interview, it dampened my kind of feelings. First I felt a bit outraged, because I thought somebody just made a movie about, where they just sexualize young girls, and I thought, what the hell's wrong? That's the last thing you need. But I'm obviously not going to watch it, so I wouldn't know what it's about. And the trailer doesn't seem to make it clear what it's about. So when I watched that interview, it actually put things into perspective, and it just kind of, yeah. So I don't know about if it should cancel the movie, but I just felt that, damn, it just kind of brought it home all of a sudden. Right, Mufti, let's do DMT. All right, orale. So, it's about cultures clashing. Right, what's going on? Hashim, you're doing it. I was reading up about, it's interesting. I love learning about this kind of stuff, the whole religious and the kind of consciousness experience. And I do feel that it is something. I was there's an interview where Al-Ustad Terence McKenna, he speaks about that. You see, what it does is it gives people, you see, this whole world, this whole life, we have this huge question mark kind of, looming over us of the afterlife, of what is there after death. And I feel that these things are an, if not an approximation, perhaps an actual experience to some extent of what lies beyond. And I feel in some ways it brings peace to people, it allows them. So it's interesting, Mufti G, which is the best? Walid says Maliki tafsir in English. There aren't many tafsirs in English, to be fair. I don't think so. I mean, the best Maliki tafsir in Arabic would be Ibn Ashur's, his At-Tahrir wa Tanweer, but it's like 30 volumes. It's not going to really be translated into English. Ismail Akram, do you believe in a bodily resurrection? Averroes and Avicenna had some unorthodox views. Also, thoughts on Ghazali say these people are non-Muslim. Hi, Ghazali. Ghazali's an interesting character. I feel that on many things he's amazing, and on some things he's incredibly weird. And so I can't figure him out sometimes. As far as what do I feel the afterlife is like, I feel that the afterlife is absolutely otherworldly. We cannot identify with it in any sense. And this is the great question mark. And this is why I feel sometimes these kind of things like entheogens, what that realm is like. I think it's just otherworldly. I think it's naive to think that it's really going to be exactly like how you are here. I don't think it's going to be like that at all. And I do think it's more to do with consciousnness, not to do with bodies as we think in that sense. It's just different in my understanding. That's you see, we all believe in a continuity after death, sorry. The difference is as to what does that continuity look like. The reality is nobody really knows. Everybody's just firing in the dark. To me, I feel it's more to do with consciousness. But what does that mean? I don't know. And many people have said that. Ibn Abi Zayd, the great Maliki, in his Risala, writes it's about the arwah in the afterlife. He does not mention the bodies and things like that. So, but does that mean, what does consciousness mean? We can't exactly appreciate that here, because consciousness here is only understood through the body. Unless there was something that could give you an out-of-body conscious experience. Then you might have some appreciation. Yeah, let's move on. Never crosses my mind I have grandkids. Seeker Kelt, sorry. You have grandkids, you're doing it. Sheldrake as well, absolutely. These are from the great Asatidha of the Ilm al-Arwah, the people, the great Mashayikh, scholars of consciousness, people like Sheldrake, people like McKenna, people like this. I definitely think they're worth benefiting from. Right, so let's take some questions. Imam Chaudhry Walid, Kazi, you're doing it, is in the house. Right, let's take a lot of fake news. Are books like Lisaanul Arab legit? Yeah, I mean, Lisaanul Arab by Ibn Manzur is a dictionary. It's just a dictionary, Arabic dictionary, but it's a great dictionary. It's a lexicon. So it's more than just a brief, like when you're thinking dictionary, you're thinking like Oxford, you're thinking something with a definition, a few examples. Something like Lisan al-Arab would go into expansive, it's a lexicon, it would go into huge citations and poetry, and, it's going to have, that's my private jet coming. Yeah, so it's great. I mean, if that's what the question is, I don't really get the question. Somebody said Mufti is clearly pro. Alex said Mufti is clearly pro free mixing. What the hell is free mixing? Like making music tapes. You know, if you replace the words with actual words, the real words, not just your made up words, the real words are shared space between the genders. Now all of a sudden you realize how dumb it sounds. How dumb does that sound? Can there be shared space between genders? No, really. This one. This should just be all men, any. All men hang about together, any bro. You know, this is the ridiculous. Look, listen. In the Prophet's time, unless you think whoever's saying this kind of stuff that they're more pious than the Prophet, in the Prophet's time, from the marketplaces, you name a place in society, from the marketplace to the haram of Mecca and Medina, to the sanctuaries, the sacred sanctuaries of Mecca and Medina, from the marketplaces to them, and every space in between, including them, was shared by both genders. In the Prophet's time, the mosques had no barriers. Men and women prayed together. They could see each other. They spoke to each other. The marketplaces were mixed. The Kaaba was mixed. Masjid al-Nabawi was mixed. Do you think that the Prophet, you're so intelligent that the Prophet could not think of placing a curtain? That this idea it could not appear to the Prophet. I mean, that is, to me, it is absurd to suggest that. Of course the Prophet could suggest that. Did he? No. If you're going to tell me, well, that's because no hanky-panky used to go on in the Prophet's time, that is as dumb as the first suggestion. I would just say dumb meets dumber. Of course, they were human beings. They had all kinds of people. Of course, these things were going on. You've got narrations of them going on. You've got incidents of them going on. You've got several incidents. You've got the famous incident where the person comes to the Prophet and says, okay, he says in certain narrations that he just had sex out of wedlock. He says that in certain riwayat. And what does the Prophet say? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He says to him, and the person's kind of remorseful for what he's done. And the Prophet says to him that, have you prayed? And he says, yes. And the Prophet says, well, praise and atonement. And obviously this is going to have people now going, oh, isn't it meant to be killing the person? But you see, this is that hadith, is it not? This is and I know some riwayat where it doesn't fully explain what he did. Because he says, oh, I did something, I transgressed. And in some they say, oh, he didn't actually have sex. But Ibn Hajar brings the other riwayat where he actually says that zinait, I did zina. But, okay, look at the other riwayat if you're going to ignore that one. The woman that was selling. And you see, look, this is women economically being self-sufficient, being tradeswomen, women of trade. They were a woman who was selling things. She's going around the popular hadith. She's going around selling things, and she goes to this. She's selling it door to door, and she comes to this person, and he says, "Well," he says, "Masha, ahlan wa sahlan, ahlan wa sahlan." He says, "Sara, andar to aaye, andar aaye." He says, "Why don't you just? Why don't? Oh, that's interesting. Selling. Oh, that's. Why don't you come in and I'll take a look?" And and innocently, the woman comes in. You see this one, naughty. So as soon as she comes in, he's like, he can't hold himself back, and there's the fondling and the sexual. Although in that particular incident, he doesn't have sex, but he has all the sexual, the fondling and kissing and things like all of this. And then later on, he feels bad and he goes and tells the Prophet. And the Prophet tells him that, look, a similar kind of thing where he tells him, have you not prayed? You see, and in that particular case, the Prophet does tell him that I hope, she's not, he says, like, he does say something which makes the person feel even worse, because the Prophet says, I hope she's not the wife of a soldier who's gone out, and this is how you are behaving, and reprimands him. But the point is that these people existed. I'm just trying to give examples where this was. It's not, in case you think, oh, they were a society that had no sexual desires, and they only pray Salatul Tahajjud. The children just come on their own. The storks just bring the children. So now, right? Khadim Rizvi's he's like, can you help me pick this up? He's like, oh, I dropped it. So the point is that, yet did the Prophet say, let's draw a curtain? No, he did not. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the one who brought us this deen. Not you and not your dad. Got news for you. So, yeah. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these questions. Right. Did Mufti talk about... Right. Kiwi Rockstar all had that problem. Why don't you want me to call you? I don't know what these questions are. Thoughts on... Mufti, did Imam Shafi'i ally himself with the Ahlul Hadith? Did he ally himself with the Ahlul Hadith? He wasn't a Muhaddith. Yes, that is true. I have covered that in much depth. He did, but I feel that was a kind of... I feel Imam Shafi'i went through a kind of religious existential crisis, and he kind of recreated himself. So he went from being this Maliki to realizing that that's not going to work for me. So what do I do? So he didn't have a region, you see, because the deen, the living tradition, was regional at that time. And he didn't have a region to fall back on. So he changed the loyalty from region to the isnad. And I've got a whole discussion on this. And do watch that. I go into much more detail there. Right. There was a... Kaleem, you're doing it with the super chat. Much love, much love. Kaleem says, how do you deal with the fact that some scholars have interpreted verses in the Qur'an to suggest that child marriage is permissible? I've noticed that these interpretations are very easy to come across than others. Yeah, Kaleem, I mean, I've discussed that. on many occasions that it is very sad and unfortunate, but it is the case. But inshallah, I'm hopeful that in time to come, we will overturn these ridiculous, you know, atrocious kind of teachings that people have allowed to permeate. What they do is they just twist certain verses to mean that. So there are verses that speak about women in a state of iddah, and the kind of post divorce cycle, that this kind of interim period where a woman does not remarry. So it's like either 1 or 3 menstrual cycles, and it's to do with many things. I've got a video explaining the purpose of iddah. You can watch that. It's to do with pregnancies and other things. Now, because the verse says, and those women who, and it actually addresses women, by the way, not girls, and it says those women who have they've reached the menopause, that for them it can be 3 months in waiting. And it mentions those who do not have cycles. So here, this is actually talking about those women, and I've got a detailed video clip on this as well, by the way. This is actually speaking about women who do not have a cycle or have a highly irregular cycle, that it only occurs, scarcely. It's referring to them. What they did is they interpreted this as saying, oh, those who are little girls, and therefore they do not have a cycle. You see, that would be useless, because the verse says, it mentions inirtabtum, that if you were to have doubt that, has she had her cycle or not? Why would you have a doubt with young girls? You wouldn't expect people to be doubt that has her cycle finished or not. Because the verse is saying, then let them wait 3 months, go with the monthly cycle. That wouldn't even be a doubt. But it's just because of this sectarian nonsense that people, they refuse to challenge their seniors who just accepted this. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Ziryab says specifically, you have to be influenced by the Talmud to see that as about little children. Ziryab, that is a very good point. Very good point. Why? Because, you see, if you look at a lot of the early, the kind of the formulation of Islamic law in its early days, very early days, in the time of the Salaf, especially in the time of the Sahaba and Tabi'een, after the Prophet, there creeps in a huge influence of Jewish scribes. So, and I discussed this in great length with Dr. Mahdi Sajid. So if you haven't watched that Mind Trap, do check that out. So we discussed this there, that this kind of creeps in. So I see that, definitely. I agree with you 100%. Mi'atan fil mi'a. That is definitely the case, that there seems to be this kind of Judeo influence going on. Why would God be interested in sex? Exactly. Can you break down the Bektashi sect? The Alawites, are they Muslim? Mr. Layth. Mr. Layth. Oh, Mr. Layth, can you answer? I'm not sure. I don't think I understood the question, to be honest with you. If you're talking about the Shia, then I've already spoken about them earlier on today. Right, so what is going on? Yeah, this week I didn't have any mind. I didn't have a mind trap. What can I say, people? Fallen victim to the man flu. I was out of it for a couple of days. I was like, oh God, I need to get better. But yeah, so I'm better, but still kind of just a few remnants here and there. But hopefully this week there will be a mind trap. You're doing it, people. You're doing it. What's that you're drinking? This is the elixir of life, people. Soma. Sharaban tahura. I never read a poem today. I did. People, I printed out a poem. This is by the legend Ahmad Faraz. Wah. Ranjish hi sahi, dil hi dukhane ke liye. That even if it's for grief, even if it's just simply to hurt this heart, फिर से मुझे छोड़ के जाने के लिए. Even if it's to simply leave me once again, but come. Allah, 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 Allah. He says, पहले से मरासिम ना सही, फिर भी कभी तो रस्मो राय दुनिया ही निभाने के लिए. Allah, Allah. He says, even if it's simply for the sake of formalities, even if it's for that, but come. Allah, Allah. किस किस को बताएंगे जुदाई का सबब हम. किस किस को बताएंगे जुदाई का सबब हम. तू मुझसे खफा है तो जमाने के लिए. Allah, Allah, Allah. He says, look, and this is going out for all those people that are always being Instagram couples. Because the point, what he's saying is that, look, so many people will ask now that what happened? That how did you split up? So he says, kis kis ko batayenge judai ka sabab hum. That how many people can we tell that what went wrong so we separated? You know what? Forget it. For the sake of this world then, for the spectators, for them, for the Insta crowd, just come back. He says, ke umar se hoon lazzat-e girya se bhi mahroom. Girya is a classic Urdu word which is to do with crying. Lazzat-e girya, the pleasures of tears. He says, it has been an age, that time has gone that I've been deprived of the pleasure of crying. Bahut dukhi atma hai yaar. He says ke umar से हूँ लज्जत गिरिया से भी महरूम, ए राहत जान मुझको रुलाने के लिए. Hi, 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 hi. He says, even if it's simply to just make me cry, but come. Allah, Allah. अब तक दिले खुश फहम को तुझसे हैं उम्मीदें, ये आखिरी शमे भी बुझाने के लिए. Allah. He says, up until now, this naive heart still has some expectations from you. Even if it's to simply extinguish this final flame of hope. But come back. After reading that, you feel so sorry. You think, you know what? I'll come. Dukhi atma yaar, dukhi atma. Mr. Layth, thanks for bringing me closer to Islam. Wah, 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 wah. You're welcome, yaar. You're welcome. Right, alright. No hay de qué, hermano. No hay de qué. 4 दिना दा प्यार है रब्बा, लंबी जुदाई. Ay, Khadim Hussain, Majnu Sala. Acha. Right, so what is going on, people? What are some questions? Let me take. Somebody has asked, I've been asked previously about Shabir Yusuf. Somebody has to tell me who he is. You know what? Message me on Insta. Tell me about him. I don't know who he is, actually. Mufti, is it true that by getting headaches, it is a sign Allah loves you? That's definitely a fabricated hadith made up by made up by Panadol. Do you have a headache? Well, it has been related on good authority that Allah loves you. Meanwhile, buy Panadol extra. That would be absurd. Why? If Allah loves you, why would... what kind of games is he playing? You know what? I love that guy. Yaar, isko migraine de do, yaar. Give him persistent migraine. I love you, yaar. Love you. What kind of love is this? Tough love, huh? Tough love. That would be... So, no, that's not true. Allah does not love you. That's migraine. You need to get that fixed. So, what is going on? Did the Prophet Musa stutter? Wow, what a question. That reminds me. I had somewhere. Un momento, I did have somewhere.
And let's just...
Oh. Oh, right, here it is. I don't know why it's... Right, there it is, people. Now, there has been an artificial intelligence reconstruction of what Pharaoh Ramses II may have looked like. And there you've got Sisi as well. To be fair, that does actually look pretty similar to Sisi, you gotta say. Right, so... Right, I want to share some thoughts, people. That's one of the great things about Monday nights with Mufti is I get to share some thoughts. You guys are like having anxiety. That reminds me, I saw this clip actually, and I thought, this clip, I had anxiety watching it. Let's see, where's it gone?
And let's just get this straight.
No, where's it gone? Yeah. Here it is. Oh! Woohoo! Oh, my nerves! This is 2020 now. That was 2019. Right, so so one of the great things about Monday nights is I get to share some of my thoughts, stuff I've been reading. So I've been reading up a lot more on this whole Moses and Egyptology thing. And I have to say, I am finding it much more intriguing than I would have once thought. And I am kind of inclined to there must be some reality to this. I'm just thinking about it, you see, because and it's an ongoing research. There's there's so much to go through. But you see, the question is this: is it possible that Moses was the Pharaoh Akhenaten, and who preaches monotheism, and prior to him, that some of the other pharaohs could have they been prophets, biblical and Quranic prophets? So, for example, Dawood alayhi salam and Sulayman alayhi salam. And I've been reading through some of these, the works of Ahmad Usman, and I've been doing some other research, kind of sporadic research at the same time, going through things like the Amarna kings and the whole kingdom, and just it's been like just whew. Right. So what's interesting? Okay, let me tell you. You see, the thing is this: there has been extensive research that has been done on the kingdoms of David and Solomon, archaeological research, and the Bible describes the kingdoms of David, the kingdom of Solomon, which was, amazing, of great splendor. It was from the Nile to the Euphrates. It was administered through 12 different kind of districts. It has great prosperity. Solomon is somebody who is married to the daughter of the Pharaoh. He's trade is really booming in his time. It's just he has great lofty buildings built and things like this. Now, the question is, okay, so there's Sulayman alayhi salam. Now, archaeologists have looked, and there has been no finding to substantiate, for example, Sulayman like that. Nothing till date has been found, which you would anticipate something to be found, because if you had such a great empire, surely something must be there, testifying to that. Now, what's interesting is that this Egyptologist, Ahmad Usman, he has looked into history. Historians have therefore denied Solomon. They've said he doesn't exist. He was a myth. Now, he has taken an alternate route where he's looked into history and said, well, okay, does this description fit anywhere else? And he's found that, well, actually, the description does fit Amenhotep III, who is the son of Tutmosis. And they are both kings who have incredible prosperity, rule for an incredibly lengthy period of time. Amenhotep ruled from the Euphrates to from the Nile to the Euphrates. He has great palaces, once again marries many princesses from around the world, marries the daughter of the Pharaoh, known for the amount of marriages that he had to leading princesses and figures throughout the world. Great prosperity. Once again, Amenhotep administers his kingdom through these 12 districts. Amenhotep was known for his kind of axioms and wisdoms of Amenhotep, as Sulayman was known for his wisdoms and his judgment. And there's a huge similarity. So this leaves one of three possibilities. Either these both simultaneously, or these both existed and did exactly the same thing. The only problem with that, the challenge, let me put it like this, the challenge with that is, whereas we do find all these archaeological findings for Amenhotep III, we don't find anything for Sulayman alayhi salam. So it's interesting. That's one. The other, there's three outcomes to this. The second outcome is maybe some historians have argued that Solomon of the Bible was not as huge in his kingdom as the Jewish people presented him to be, but rather his stories, he was a ruler, maybe he ruled a small, this is one hypothesis presented by some historians, that he may have ruled a small amount, and these stories were later reinvented and inspired by Amenhotep III. So they looked at that kingdom and they recreated it for this biblical character. This is one interpretation, the second interpretation. The third interpretation is that, what if they were the same person, but different angles were, and different interpretations of them were given? And not all interpretations have to be accurate. Even the Egyptologist ones that are documented could just be interpretations. Now, what's interesting is Amenhotep is a title that he takes, and Ahmad Usman writes how Amenhotep, Amen is actually something to do with peace, which is what Sulayman is actually a title as well, to do with peace. It's interesting, the similarities, that's all I'm saying. I find it very, wow. He does switch the whole chronology. So according to Ahmad Usman, they precede Moses. It's interesting. It is very fascinating. Moses in that case would have been, according to his hypothesis, is Akhenaten, the pharaoh who overturns everything, the rebel pharaoh who overturns the kingdom on its head. He outlaws the worship of other gods and just has the one God. Now, some people try to say he was worshipping the sun. Aten was the sun, but this, by many people, has been, many historians have written that may have just been symbolic of the one true God, as in the sun because of the fire and it gives life. But it wasn't the sun that they actually worshipped. It was Aten, which was the one true Lord. Now, what we do know about Akhenaten is he outlaws, shuts down temples, and he is hated by the clergy, the priesthood. Not the clergy, the priesthood. They hate him because he shuts them down. He proscribes, forbids any worship of any other gods. He builds himself this whole new city, the Amana, which is known as Tel Amana. He calls it Akhetaten or something, but the horizon of Aten is the name he gives it, but it's known today as Tel Amana, the Amana kingdoms. So what is interesting, I'm just saying, if that be true, now obviously we don't have clear evidence, but if it be true, certain verses of the Qur'an seem to shed a different light. That, for example, because Akhenaten, what he does is he rules, and then eventually there's this uprising against him and he leaves. But then he does come back. But when he comes back, he seems to leave and disappear again. Now, there was an impression that maybe he was buried at Amana, but when they've examined the tomb, they've realized that he's not buried there. Somebody else is buried in that tomb, and it's not him. Now, according to the Quranic description, Moses is a middle-aged man before he sets off. Now, a middle-aged man in that day and age, so somebody who's 40 years old, he's lived 40 years of his life, How could it be possible that he's not been married, he's not had children, he's not done, like, just because the Quran does not mention these things, it's very unlikely for a person in that day and age to have not lived that kind of a life. Because people got married very early, like you would, to be a 40-year-old man in, 3,500 years ago and not be married would be something incredibly rare. The other issue is that, not issue, but interesting point is, when it mentions that when Moses enters the city, Dakhal al-Madina, this one day, the verse mentions, فَوَجَدَ, he finds somebody min shi'atihi, he finds these two people quarreling. And he ends up attacking one of the guys because he gets angry and he kills him accidentally. Now, what's interesting is it mentions that he helps that the man min shi'atihi, not from his tribe, min qabilatihi, min shi'atihi. And Shia is usually used for like a religious following. Because Akhenaten, if he is Akhenaten, had been preaching for many years. And this may have given the pretext because for people to rise against him, that maybe the person he killed could have been a priest. He could have been somebody of some standing. Because what we do learn through history is Akhenaten suddenly disappears and there seems to be a military coup. And what's interesting, the Qur'an mentions that when Moses is warned that they want to kill you, they don't say the Pharaoh wants to kill you. They say that al-Mala, that the council ya'tamiruna bik liyaqtuluk, that the council are conspiring to kill you, does not mention the Pharaoh is doing it. I'm just saying, if he was Akhenaten, it would have been because he was the Pharaoh at that time. Now, it's interesting, he leaves. According to this version, if he is Akhenaten, when he returns, when Moses throws the staff, you see, those magicians doing their magic tricks of trying to say, well, look, trickery and hallucinations, and these are snakes. The staff of Moses would have had the serpent head, which would have been what they call the royal scepter. According to this theory, when Moses leaves, if he was, let's say, Akhenaten, he took the scepter with him. And it's interesting that the Quran actually highlights that there's something unique about his stick. Because when Allah asks him, وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا Musa, he over-justifies why he has it. Do you find that in the verse he says, hiya asaya, it's my stick, my staff, I lean on it, atawakkau alayha, ahushu biha ala ghanami, I tend to the flock with it, and I've got all these other needs with it. Waliya fiha ma'arib ukhra. Now that's like, whoa, that's way too much of a justification for why have you got that stick? Because was there more to this stick? Was it that it had this serpent head? As, by the way, many Jewish traditions do narrate that the staff of Moses did have this serpent thing on it. Now, which many people tie back to Osiris and stuff like that, the great Pharaoh. Now, if that be the case, when Moses wants to quieten or quash the trickery of the magicians, him throwing the staff would have been him throwing the royal scepter, and thereby they recognize that he was the true Pharaoh, and they kind of prostrate, accepting his argument. And by the way, the raising of the hand, I was quite surprised to learn that in Egyptian pharaoh in pharaonic tradition, that they had a ritual that when the pharaoh, their kind of inauguration ritual was something about rubbing a hand and raising it, and then raising the scepter. This was actually part of the which is in several hieroglyphs and things like this. You can see it that many of the pharaohs would enact this ritual to kind of own the authority. What is also interesting as a final point, I'll mention this, is it's interesting when Moses decides to just leave with the Israelites who are his following. When he decides to leave with them, the Mala, the council, what do they say to the Pharaoh? Because remember, Moses has gone for so many years. There are other pharaohs. And it's interesting that after Akhenaten, the pharaohs that succeed him are not of royal descent. They're military generals, and which shows that there may have been a military coup. There's Horemheb and a few others, and that proceed. And then Ramses the first, not Ramses the second, Ramses the first. So what's interesting is the Mala say to Fir'aun in the Qur'an, أَتَذَرُ Musa وَقَوْمَهُ لِيُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Do you let Musa and his qawm go? That they should go and spread mischief in the earth. لِيَذَرَكْ وَآلِهَتَكْ. On the account that he has let you be and your gods alone. Meaning that he has now made a truce that you can have your gods. It's interesting because this suggests that Moses had prior to that declared a war on the other gods. But generally we don't find that in the story. Like in the story we don't find that Musa alayhi salam is so much attacking the other gods. He's just simply asking the Pharaoh to say, well, let me go with the Israelites. He's not actually, you see, the story of Moses, according to the biblical version, is not one trying to say everybody needs to worship God. It's one of him saying, let the Israelites go and let me just take them to worship God. So it's interesting, this verse, أَتَذَرُ مُوسَى وَقَوْمَهُ لِيُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Do you let them go so they spread mischief in the earth? لِيَذَرَكْ. So that he finally, like he lets you be وَآلِهَتَكْ and your gods. Like now he's leaving you alone to your gods. You've accepted this truce, they say to the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh says, you've got a point, let's go get them. So it's interesting. I don't know. I'm just finding it like, whoa, it's very fascinating. Including the name. I mean, the name, I know the name Moses is definitely not it's like an Egyptian name. What's interesting is certain people have suggested that the name Moses was like son of, as in they shortened it because they used to, this is what they would call him to kind of like put him down, that they would not call him his full name. Because what is interesting is Akhenaten, his name was actually deleted. It was kind of like etched out of the records. And it was only in the last few centuries that they've discovered the Amana kingdom, and only recently, I mean in very recent history, that we've come to learn so much about Akhenaten, which wasn't known before, because the pharaohs after him had removed, because they were so offended by what he did, they had removed his name from their history. I don't know, it's food for thought. I don't feel it's against the Quranic version if it be true. I don't know. Right now I'm just exploring, I'm reading it, I'm learning. It is incredibly fascinating. Right, so yeah, the Council of Rabbis in the Ptolemaic period who wrote the Septuagint and identified Mizraim as Egypt were the ones who changed history. Okay. I mean, yeah, but I mean, this is, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. That's all. Cool, people. So let's take some rapid round questions, and then I'll tell you what, let's wrap this up. It's been a hell of a interesting, Mr. Bond. New Smithsonian, you're doing it with the super chat. You're doing it. Much love, much love. Right. Mufti, aren't most of these archaeological research is basically just loads of assumptions? Prehistoric era is claimed that for a reason, right? Yes and no. You see, because they have archaeological findings and they have bodies, they have mummies, they have all the, it's not that, you see, the interesting thing is that history to a certain extent has been documented. Now people are just trying to fill in the dots. They're trying to say, well, look, is there a time in Egyptian hieroglyphics where they speak of a certain people exiling, getting up and leaving Egypt? And there is a time where the Shesu people, they kind of exile. So so some people are trying to see if this matches that story. And then obviously the Shesu people are with Akhenaten, which is interesting because the story of Moses is with the Israelites. And so it's, some people are seeing, well, maybe this is more than just a coincidence. Maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know, but I definitely find it fascinating. Right, so somebody said, sorry, Mufti, did Moses stutter? You see, according to this version, if Moses was Akhenaten, if he was, then he would not have stuttered. The issue would have been that he would not have been well spoken in Proto-Hebrew. Because even though he dwelt to some extent amongst the Israelites and in that region at I think Thebes and the other region where the Israelites lived, he went there, and Akhenaten did set up there. So, but he would have been somebody that would have spoken Egyptian. And he would not have spoken their language as a first language. So when he says that send my brother with me to strengthen me, that wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli, that, unravel my tongue in a sense that they may understand me. It was more to do with language and expression. It wasn't to do with stuttering. Later people, the biblical version is that, oh, maybe he had a stutter, and that's why he's kind of stuttering. Which is interesting, whenever they have a challenge, they just like make the prophets kind of like, oh, let's give them another handicap feature. But I feel that this is more interesting, that it could have been that because it was not his first language. Interesting. Point ki baat. Right, there is an entire surah on Abu Lahab. How is that relevant to me? Ayo Pietro di Brasa. You're doing it. Orale. Right, shukran for the super chat. Shukran. You see, Surah Lahab, I've mentioned this before, is not to do with the, I mean, it can relate to the uncle of the Prophet, whose name was not Abu Lahab. Muslims just called him that. Just as they called Abu Jahl, that was not his name. Right? Now, this surah was generic, saying about any person who turns against the one of Lahab. Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. Ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab. These people, doomed is that person who tries to, he tries to prevent the faith from being spreaded. He, who thinks that just because he has money and wealth, he can prevent righteous actions from taking place, that person is doomed. The person who may have, even those who are their confidants, are doomed. Now, this was a generic surah. It was not primarily about the uncle of the Prophet, although it did kind of fit his scenario well. Therefore, many Muslims referred to him as Abu Lahab. And what happens is this kind of becomes popular, and some people assume, oh, this must have been about Abu Lahab then. So it's kind of like a reverse engineering. But I feel it was the other way round. That this verse was revealed, and then people, they applied it to the uncle of the Prophet, and thereby started calling him Abu Lahab. So I feel it's the other way round, and it is universal. Music, yeah, music, of course, music. I've got detailed videos on music. You can watch, you can listen to music. Why would God, let me get this right, look, this deen is built upon reason. If I got some strings and kind of, you strike them to create vibrations, yeah, why would God throw me in hell because of that? Let me just get this right. Okay, so let me get this right. So, so if, let's say, if I make a sound with my mouth, is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. If I go ah, ooh, ee, okay. What if I whistle? Yeah, that's okay. What if I go like this? Oh, they go, yep. Oh, hello. They go, yep, that's fine. Okay, what if I had like a flute-like object in front of my mouth and I blew into that, and now because I'm blowing into it and it has certain orifices, it creates a sound. Just as if I'm going, ah, that's creating a sound. But now the sound is just somewhat more melodious. Okay? It's like a whistling sound, a flute sound. Oh, no. Now God's going to throw you in hell. It's like, wait, what? It's like, no. This one. If you do this one, then if you do this one, then that's the hellfire. I mean, how does that make any sense? That God would say, you know what, you can you can, oh, by the way, you can beat the drums. Drums are okay. You can beat the drums. But if, God forbid, you had a guitar and you went, ring, you're like, putar, him. This one in the bottomless pit of hell. I mean, what kind of a God is this? I mean, seriously, does that sound like the God that created this, like, this mind-boggling cosmos? That created these nature and the forces and every single thing that we observe or ever, that allowed us to have thoughts and concepts, and that does that sound like God? That would be like, okay, so, huh? Oh, wait there. You breathed into a straw. That's okay. Oh, what if I breathe into a pipe? That's okay. What if the pipe has 2-3 holes on top? You harami. Throw this one in hell. Harami kahinga. You think you can blow into a pipe with a couple of holes in there? That's seriously the logic of what people reduce God to. They make God out like, the infantilization of God, like he's some, like as though he has the reasoning of a 3-year-old. That's just that to a 3-year-old with a tantrum. That's tobat nasuha. That's these people. That's the. Of course, it makes sense. It's haram. This is the ridiculous nature. This is why what I say to you is, look, understand God through his magnificence. Then in light of that, think that does this make sense? That would God do something like that? Throw us in hell for blowing into a pipe? No, that's okay. Blowing into a pipe. Huh? Pipe had 2 holes. Had 1 hole. Okay, 1 hole. 2 holes. Kafir. Think of Saleko. Think. What? Right, so people, what's going on? Pietro de Praza has asked, but doesn't Surah Lahab talk specifically about Abu Lahab's wife? No, وَامْرَأَتُهُ, this is what I said, his companion, his confidant. And it's giving an example of people who collaborate against the faith. Now, this is what I said. In that case, because the verses seem to fit this scenario, this is what, so, for example, imagine, I'm not saying relax in case people think this is revelation, but let's say you had some message, say that, and these stupid, idiotic leaders with ridiculous hairstyles that go and do. Now, let's just say, or with ridiculous appearances. And now it could be that, let's just say it's a bit more vague, like ridiculous appearances. Now, that happens to fit Donald Trump. So you apply. Oh, whoa, froze there for a moment. Yeah, so you apply that to Donald Trump. That would mean, it does fit him, but it doesn't mean it necessarily was restricted to him. Somebody said you missed a super chat. Salam Mufti, your opinion on Taqi Usmani's efforts on Islamic banking. Shukran, much love for the super chat. You're doing it. Gori, ele, Gori aaya. Right, so banking for us Muslims in the West, lots of love and support from Germany once again. Shukran, you're doing it. I have to say, I do get many messages from people in Germany and Canada for some reason. I gotta say that I don't know what's going on. There must be some, must be my jinnat that are assisting me. Right, so that's shukran. What's this? Pietro de Brasa says, thank you for all your help. I took the Shahada thanks to you. Alhamdulillah. Wow, I'm honored. Well, what can one say? May Allah bless you. May He bless this journey of faith, for you, for everybody watching, for everybody learning. It is a journey in essence. If I've been of any assistance, I'm humbled deeply by that. Shukran for sharing that. It is good to sometimes, you hear sometimes very positive messages. You get a lot of the usual hate anyway. I'm so used to that. No, I do get a lot of loving messages as well, but it is very touching. Shukran. Hayyakallah. Handsome Hound said, Mufti, my super chat. I did answer your super chat. Right, so let me see. Was there another super chat? Mufti, criticism to your Fabri being vouched for is that he was so knowledgeable that he did not need vouching like Abdul Bar and other scholars. Yeah, that's the dumbest response I've ever heard. You see, it doesn't work like that in that era of transmission. You have to remember that Ibn Abdul Bar does not really... Ibn Abdul Bar comes much after. Ibn Abdul Bar passes away he passed away 464 Hijri. Now, in his time, really the transmission of hadith just through asanid is kind of... Now it's just a collector's item. The books of hadith have already been documented. The era in which the muhaddithin, the real second wave muhaddithin existed, was not Ibn Abdul Bar's time. It was before him. It was over 100 years before him. It was the time of Imam Ahmad, Ibn Yahya ibn Ma'in, of Abu Zur'a al-Razi, Abu Hatim, of Bukhari, of Muslim, of Tirmidhi, of Ibn Hibban, of Ibn Khuzaymah, of Nasa'i, of these people, Dar Qutni, that era going from the 200s into and before, somewhat before the mid 300s, that era is the major second wave of the Muhaddithin era. That is when hadith is really kind of the kind of massive Cambrian explosion that you have of hadith has taken place. This era, people have to be they have to be vouched for. There's nobody that... Are you telling me Fabri, because he coexists with Bukhari? Are you telling me he's more knowledgeable than Bukhari? He's more rated than Bukhari? That Bukhari is vouched for in hadith, and Fabri, nobody needs to vouch for him. Secondly, people have vouched for Ibn Abdul Bar. Who the hell said that people haven't vouched for Ibn Abdul Bar? People transmitting after him say he is a hafidh, he is a thabt, he is a thiqa, he is this. People have vouched for him. You can read any of the books. Read Dhahabi. Read what Ibn Hajar has to say about him. Read what the other muhaddithin that come after him say. They do vouch for Ibn Abdul Bar, even though he's kind of missed that boat and he comes over a century and a half, a century after that whole wave. But still, he's like, in his day and age, it's just a collector's thing. The other thing is that, look, don't take this from me. Go to the books of hadith. Read in there, how is a transmitter vouched for? He's not vouched for by just being rated. That's dumb. Yeah. Right. Sorry, there was the question about Mufti Taqi. What do I think of... You see, to me, I feel that this whole interest thing is not the riba of the Qur'an. So if you watch my video on riba and loans, I do explain that riba of the Qur'an is loan sharkery. It is not interest, the way interest is given in banks and stuff like this. Although there is a conceptual overlap, I recognize that, but things have so drastically changed that that's not the thing that it's applying to. You understand? So, I mean, as an example, let me give you an example. That there are naturally, there are certain things that are very similar that, yes, that does, there is an interest. You are charging more than you are giving back. Sorry, than you gave in the first place. True. And that from that element, it is linguistically riba. Linguistically. But is it shar'an? Is it according to law, Islamic law riba? Not every increment which is linguistically a riba, because riba just means to increase, an increment. Now, an increment in anything does not automatically make it riba Islamically. And I've got a whole detailed video explaining the majority of things do not fall under riba. A majority of things. And the irony is that we just seem to be stuck with gold and silver, and not even gold and silver, substitute money, fiat money, and paper money. And today it's even cashless. So the irony is, in the Prophet's time, it was not actually so much to do with that. Most of the riba thing was to do with bartering and stuff like that, which today, doesn't seem to be the concern. And even if you take bartering into consideration, I gave the example, if I said I'll swap you one phone for two phones, what if they're identical? If they're identical, it still is permissible, according to everyone. So why is that not riba? Because linguistically it's riba. Because this is not what riba is about. So watch my video, it's very detailed. So according to my understanding, loan sharkery is the riba of the Qur'an. And that is the only haram riba. I'm not saying the other kind of riba are good. They're not good, but they're not the riba of the Qur'an. That's what I'm saying. Alright, so what is going... What did the Prophet mean when he said, I laugh when I kill? I laugh when I kill? I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that. Ashikul says, I sent a super chat. I don't see your super chat. Let me try and see if I can see anything here. Anonymous has used... Anonymous says, use 500 stars. You're doing it, Anonymous. I took the Shahada thanks to you too. Wow. Wow. Because everyone made takfir on me thanks to you. That's one way. I like it. I like it. Right, so what is this? What is the question? What are your thoughts on engineer Muhammad Ali Mirza? What is doing right and what is he doing wrong? I'm just trying to see where the other super chat is. Apparently I missed one. I can't see a super chat I've missed. So Anonymous says, shout out. You're doing it, Anonymous. You're doing it with the 500 stars. You're doing it. And clear. Shukran. Much love. Mufti, how do we deal with the fact that some scholars have... Yeah, I've answered that already on the child marriages. Right, so if you post the question that you allegedly said I missed, I will answer it. Hamza Khalid says, you missed my super chat. I didn't think I did. Right, here's one. Yeah, so this is the one I'm reading right now about Muhammad Ali Mirza. Yeah, so about Muhammad Ali Mirza, engineer. Oh, sorry, Mirza Muhammad Ali engineer. Or is it the other way around? But incredibly popular. And I find him, as far as the scholars of Pakistan go, very balanced according to them, definitely. So, he is definitely somebody who takes reason into consideration. He has evaluated many rulings, and he does present a balanced point of view, especially in that part of the world. Very, like, if you're going to look at those scholars, then he is very balanced compared to them. However, he is still very dogmatic in many ways, because he's still part and parcel of that culture. So you will see many things where he will be still just as dogmatic. He still will, he has this dogmatic view of, Sahih Bukhari and the whole thing. I don't think he will question. He, as far as I'm aware, he would still be a hadith dogmatist. And in many ways, you have to expect that from that part of the world. People like Allama Ghamidi Saab, like Javed Ghamidi Saab, they are an anomaly. People like that are very rare from that part of the world. And hence he had to leave that part of the world and move to America, because you just cannot live in Pakistan if you're that open-minded. So, yeah, I mean, but he is definitely, great. He's doing great work for relatively. So, considering that part of the world, he's somebody very balanced. You take those extremes. He's very anti-sectarian. He speaks about evidences. He does bring in reason. He does consider reason to be, a powerful tool. So for that part of the world, he's good. But really, he's still going to be, light years behind what we would be thinking here in this part of the world, because they don't have that atmosphere there. They don't have this critical thought the way people have it in the West. They don't value reason the way we value reason. Like, to them, they do value it to some extent, but then not to the extent that we would here recognize the value of reason, the value of freedoms, for example, the value of, having certain, like, just treating certain human rights. Like, they do recognize them, but not to the extent. That's what I'm saying. That people here, we would just take as a given. We would think, duh, that's obvious. But it's not so obvious over there. Cool. I don't know what. Right. Please block the other handsome hound. How many handsome hounds are there? Right, okay. Do you feel that any non-sexual interaction between genders is permissible? Any. I believe all interaction is permissible. You're saying non-sexual? I mean, look, men and women are just human beings. They're just people, and people converse and people interact. I mean, what is the obsession? The funny thing is that, you get all these people who are religious, and what they say is, oh, we don't know how to get married now because, we don't know what to do. Like, where do we find people? Because a huge part of their life, they've just been, like, really weird. And sometimes the people around them have made it really weird for them. Like, you're not allowed to talk to somebody of the opposite gender. It's like, if you talk to them, it's clearly you're just shagging them. That's if only if only the reality that's in the minds of these people, was the reality. That's not how the real world works, my friend. When you just talk to someone, you don't just have. I think you've been watching the wrong kind of movies. Oh, it's a plumber. It's a plumber. He's come. It's all right. It's a plumber. Those kind of movies are not the real world. Okay, so you don't just say hello and then you just start having sex. I mean, I'm sure many people would wish that that was the real world, but unfortunately, that's not the real world. People are just normal. So they're just going to talk. They're just going to, it doesn't, and look, even if people do flirt, even if people do these things, it doesn't mean, that, to an extent, this is normal. The normal human behavior. In fact, there was a video, I had a video of this guy who, did I bring it? Where did I, right. I don't, where did I put it, man? Let me see. If I had this video where I saw this clip and I thought that was hilarious. I had to.
And let's just get this.
No, that's not it. I'm gonna see if I can find it. No.
Dajjal with a small d.
There's something that's called moral realism. What's more?
No, I can't seem to find it. Maybe I didn't bring it up here. That's what about on this? No.
And let's just get this straight for a minute, because I think it's important to take a step back.
I can't seem
what
to.
The Prime Minister is coming to this house to tell us today is that.
Right, I'll tell you what. One moment, I'll bring it up right now.
The deal he told us was a triumph. The deal he said, as I said, that was oven-ready. The deal
one
which
moment.
he fought and won the general
Just
election
change this.
is now contradictory.
I saw this clip of this guy saying.
What incompetence! What failure of governance!
Where this person's having an interview. And he's being critiqued. And look at this. So this person is being critiqued, and what he does is he's being asked about, like, oh, would you make a film about Kashmir like this? And he immediately goes into flirting. So let me just see that.
अनुच्छेद 370 हटने के बाद क्या कश्मीर पर फिल्म बनाएंगे? ये
बिल्कुल और उसमें एक हीरोइन भी लूंगा जिसके झुमके आपके जैसे हसीन है.
Do you guys see that? I have to, oh my god, I have to play it once again. One moment. Right, so he has this, she's asking him about something critical, and he says that would he make a particular film? So he says, of course I would, and I'd get somebody with a heroine to play with, a heroine to play the part, but wearing such beautiful earrings the way you're wearing them. And wait there one moment.
अनुच्छेद 370 हटने के बाद क्या कश्मीर पर फिल्म बनाएंगे? ये
बिल्कुल और उसमें एक हीरोइन भी लूंगा जिसके झुमके आपके जैसे हसीन है.
Wow. You see, never let an opportunity go. There's somebody who's very conscientious that he has to give hisab, of all the blessings that Allah has given him. He's like, yeah, I might be asked that, why did I let this opportunity go? Yeah, but anyway, joking aside. So, look, my point is this, that yes, look, things like, it's natural, be natural. That's my point. Right, guys, okay, we've got to start wrapping this up. So, again, Ghori Aya, what's your take on issue of Hayat and Mamat? Is the Prophet alive in the grave? You see, to me, I find these discussions nonsensical. Because I think not a single Muslim can be a Muslim that does not believe that the Prophet ﷺ has passed from this world. Now, the question is, so to say, is he still in this world? What does that mean? So, what they're trying to say is it's so, like, nobody actually understands what's being said. People are saying that when is the Prophet ﷺ still in this world? And they're like, what does that mean? Does that mean like, is he buried in Medina and Medina is part of this world? They're like, no, we mean like, is he still alive in this world? You see, it's very clear. Every person in the Qur'an, every soul shall taste death. And the Prophet ﷺ is in not just the Prophet ﷺ, every single person that has passed from this world is in that threshold of the afterworld. Every single person is there. Now, the question that they could ask is there a connection between that threshold of the afterworld, which they call the barzakh? Is the Prophet in the barzakh? Every single person is in the barzakh. The barzakh is that threshold between this world and the afterworld. Meaning it's the afterworld, but because it hasn't entirely begun, whatever that means. So, is there a connection between this threshold and this world? The truth is, look, we don't know, right? We don't know. All we know is what is this in this world. So, to me, these discussions are futile. They are ridiculous. You know, people calling each other kafir over whether the Prophet in his grave it has a hayatun barzakhiyya dunyawiyya, or is it hayatun barzakhiyya ukhrawiyya? It's like, what the hell are you even on about, mate? Have you completely lost the plot? It's like, what's your point? And they're like, well, but does the Prophet hear us? And this just gets into that, to me, absurd kind of folkloric religion. You know, because to certain people, what it is that they basically say, oh, should we be allowed to pray to the Prophet, as in ask him to give us stuff? And then obviously for us to pray to him, he has to be able to hear us. Otherwise, what's the point praying to And you just go down this rabbit hole where it becomes the deification of the Prophet. The Prophet just becomes another version of God, except a lesser God. And to me, this is that same old problem. It's nothing new. It's the same old problem that the Christians had, that everybody had, that many of the, pre-Islam people had, or other religions. People never struggled with the concept of God. They struggled with the transcendence of God. You see, God was never a problem to people, like the concept of God. The problem was that God is too impersonal and transcendent. We need somebody else to also ask, that we can picture. It's the same thing, like this is how many religions kind of began. They weren't just, even if you go to religions like Hinduism, they don't actually in the actual Vedas believe that. They believe too, ultimately God is one. They do believe that, the source, they will say like Brahman is ultimately one. And the Paramatma is Brahman, and Ishvar, these are ultimately just one, different manifestations of the same supreme one being. But they say that Brahman is so distant and impersonal and transcendent that he's not interested in us. Why would he? I can't ask him. How can I ask? Come on, I can't ask him. And that's what the same thing in Christianity. Oh, I can't ask God. Let me ask this saint. And it's the same thing with many Muslims. I can't ask God. Let me ask the Prophet. Or let me ask Pir Abdul Qadir Jilani. Or let me ask my Pir Sahib. Allah says, Ud'uni astajib lakum. Why don't you just ask me? I'll give it to you. I say that, look, this was the very mission of the Prophet, to bridge the personal and the impersonal. To show that, yes, Allah is Ta'ala, He is transcendent. Lakin, but, ma'a dhalik, He is aqrabu ilaykum min hablil warid. He is closer to you than your actual self. So to know that, or to try to learn that. So this is why, to me, I'm not down with this kind of like going and asking from shrines and doing. To me, this, I understand why people do it. They do it because the truth is, true monotheism is incredibly difficult, because it is God is transcendent. So people, they don't know how to connect. And this has been the tragedy of, in the human story for millennia. It's nothing new. This is nothing. So I get it. It's just normal folkloric religion. But I hope that Muslims can kind of transcend that problem. Cool. I hope that's of some help. Right, guys, we got to start wrapping this up. Somebody, Zar, who's this? Muhammad Faisal Kharva, you're doing it with the super chat. You said you're doing it. Is it okay to be a hybrid Hanafi Maliki? Hell yeah. You can be a hybrid, man. Go for it, man. You're doing it. So, guys, we got to wrap this up. There was two things. One was our beloved, is back on the scene. Those of us that are familiar with our beloved, the one and only, right? Hazrat Sheikh al-Islam Asrar Sahib al-Rashidiyya al-Ratwi Sahib Damat Barakatuhu. He had made a Facebook post, people, which triggered huge controversy. So basically, what Asrar Saab was saying is that with the new government legislation, we should resist, and it's all a hoax, and COVID is... This whole thing is a plot to be able for the government to regain ultimate totalitarian control, for this to become Orwellian 1984 state. He made this huge post on Facebook saying, people, we need to resist, otherwise tomorrow our very freedoms of being able to do this will be taken away from us. We will be living in an Orwellian state. We need to rise, we need to protest, we need to and the reaction, unfortunately, were comments like this. You had people saying, mashallah, mashallah. This award wins, the post wins the award for the most stupid thing I have read on the internet today. So basically, our beloved, is that my private chopper flying up above? So basically, our beloved, what had happened was got energetic in the rebellious mood, and he'd written this post, put it up there. But boy, forget rallying the people kind of he did rally them, but what they did was just kind of completely, there was an outburst against him, completely backfired. And so what happened was loads of people jumped on his post. What the hell are you on about? He was saying that, we need to stop this, masks are nonsense, this is nonsense, that's nonsense. And look, I'm with you that certain things people should question, and certain things there should be a kind of give and take. But the absolute, he went full out conspiracy. I mean, it wasn't a half out kind of thing. It was like full out. This was him. He was going to save the whole. So it was like he was on full mode, and it completely backfired. So I had to kind of share that, obviously, because he's my beloved, Sheikh Asrar, my beloved. So I had to share it. So I thought, well, that's interesting. I do feel sometimes that Sheikh Asrar is, I feel sometimes, I genuinely do. This isn't me just saying this. People will probably think I'm just saying this, but I'm being legit. I feel sometimes, maybe our beloved is going through a bit of a difficult time. I think there's some. It's good to talk, yaar. This is my message to you. Call me, yaar. Phone me, yaar. Phone me. So, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. But anyway, guys, with that, there was one other thing. Since some people think I'm, a mufti that's kind of, there's another mufti that's obviously given me a run for my money. And that is once again Mufti Abdul Qavi. So those of you that have heard of him before, here he is. This video clip went viral. So this had gone kind of viral of Mufti Abdul Qavi. That's Mufti Abdul Qavi from Pakistan. Obviously, he was making this clip. I mean, he was actually making the clip. To be fair, he was fully conscious. It wasn't a secret recording. Let the guy enjoy. This is Pak-Chin Dosti. This is Pak-China relations. I've cut that laughter short, but you have to find that laughter on YouTube. It's actually one of the most funniest laughters out there. Guys, let's wrap this up. It's been awesome. It's incredibly late. I'm very tired for once. Need to call it a night. Those of you that need to reach out to me, feel free to reach out. You know the score. You know where to message me. Instagram is actually sometimes.
There's something that's called more realism.
What the hell is this? What have I switched off?
Real or not? Are they real or not? What the
hell is this?
Relative moral values and
are they objective or subjective?
When something just goes off.
What?
Bloody hell. Anyway, guys.
My question to you is so simple. My question to you
is there it is, my Patreon page. You can click like, click share. Let me get that. I don't know. I had to shut that page down. I don't know what starts playing in the background. Guys, Instagram, Facebook, like, subscribe, like and share. Click the notification bell, yaar. Click the notification. YouTube, spread the love. Don't be, this is the art of giving. This is where you learn how to share the love. It all begins with social media. Click like, share, notifications, spread it out. That's it, people. If you want to reach out to me, you can do so. Message me. Instagram's usually one of the best places right now, these days, but I will be checking other places as well as messages. Patreon, mis Patreoncitos, I do aim to this week at some point having our little group online meeting, so do look out for that. I would have had it last week, but as you know, I was a bit taken out with the man flu. The man flu is real, people. The man flu is real. Guys, take very good care of yourselves. Much love. Salamullahi alaikum wa rahmatuhu ta'ala wa barakatuh. Putting up my outro.